best of or worst of 2024 during 2024, but it's not too late to do it now. So we just want to give some of our picks. Brandon, I want to get some of your picks on what are some things you liked in 2024? What are some things maybe you didn't like in 2024? And I'll go out there. I've got a lot of things, not a lot of things, but a few things. Maybe I wasn't a huge fan of, maybe some disappointments, and I'll go with those, right? I think a disappointment was, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think a few people might agree, right? Because I don't even think they've had a pay-per-view caliber match. Is the Wyatt Six, right? A big build-up for the Wyatt Six coming out, making their debut. But I don't know if we've seen, the potential. I would like to see them more featured prominently. I see you shaking your head over there.
Yeah.
I don't see them featured as prominently as I was hoping. They are kind of like a Monday Night Raw attraction. A lot of times they're not even in the main event of Monday Night Raw. They're kind of like a middle of the card match. That would be a disappointment, I would say. And also Bronson Reed. I thought we were going to shoot him right to the main event. He started doing big things against Seth Rollins, big things against Braun Strowman. And, they never really transpired into, him, headlining a pay-per-view for the World Heavyweight Championship or the U.S. Championship for that matter, right? So I think, that was a little bit of a disappointment to have him essentially be this massive beast and get in these huge feuds with some big stars and then not really much pan out from it. So those are some disappointments. I want to hear your side of things. I imagine you have some good sides that you want to.
100%. I think Gunther. I mean, it's been a hell of a year for Gunther. I mean, you could probably easily pull. If you're doing like a top 10 list, you can almost make all 10 Gunther, because everybody he faced this year, like the Bash in Berlin with Randy Orton, that was fun. He's had bangers with Sheamus. You go through the list of Sami Zayn's also had some great matches. You know what? There's one match that was really good, and I just mentioned Sami Zayn, and it was against Chad Gable.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that was one of the best matches of the year. So my disappointment, I guess I'm going to lead into, is we need more Chad Gable. I've been saying this for years and years and years. We've been doing this podcast. We're in our, 8th? We're going to be coming up on 8 years very soon here. And you know what? A good portion of those, I've been pushing for Chad Gable to get a push. I mean, Chad Gable to me, I'm sitting here just kind of thinking about it. It was what? It was a random Raw, him and Sami Zayn. That was what? That was back, in the spring, so to speak? It was such a great match.
Yeah.
It was such a great match. Like, to me, Chad Gable has been the biggest disappointment for me, and it's not because of his ability. I thought when they broke him up with the Alpha Academy, I thought the sky was the limit for him. I thought he was going to be an Intercontinental Champion by the end of 2024, like some champion, whatever it was, even if it was a mid-card championship, like a U.S. championship, whatever. I thought that was the fresh coat of paint he needed, and Chad Gable has not gotten it yet. I just want to see in 2025, I want to see them really push Chad Gable, because obviously he's got the in-ring acumen. I think he's gotten better on the microphone. I think his chops are good. He's showing a personality. I feel like he has that package where I think he needs to be pushed. So if I had something that I was disappointed about in 2024, everything else doesn't come close to me as Chad Gable not getting the push that he deserves. So I'm hoping in 2025, he gets the push, and we're talking about this next year as we're going into 2026, where something I was very impressed by was Chad Gable getting that run that he deserves. That's where I'm at. I'm looking forward to seeing, hopefully, Chad Gable get a well-deserved title run.
I think the best wrestler in my eyes of 2024 is the best wrestler in the world in general. Maybe, not specifically like Cody Rhodes, who had a really good year. Obviously, he's the number one wrestler because he's the head of the company. It's like winning the Super Bowl makes you the NFL team of the year, right? But I think Will Ospreay, I said it before, I think he's the best wrestler in the world. I still think he's the best wrestler in the world. But the breakout star, I think, this year, right? Somebody who you might have not caught off guard because you kind of knew about it, but Bron Breakker, I think he had a real breakout year. Bron Breakker had a really good year in the WWE, and it was a matter of time. It was finally this year that he made his main roster debut, and they put the IC belt on him, and he got into some big feuds there. I'm really looking forward to we saw him at WrestleMania or SummerSlam, so I'm really looking forward to seeing him a part of WrestleMania this upcoming year. I think it was a big breakout star. I'm hoping. I heard some rumblings that Mr. Mike Bailey Speedball might be signing with AEW sooner rather than later.
I heard that too.
And I think that if he has the opportunity, could be the real breakout star of next year. Joe Henry, obviously, his popularity this year, his in-ring stuff is all right. His popularity, for sure, made him the superstar of the year to many people's eyes, in the sense of his name just being so synonymous, being chanted, and the signs and everything related to him. So I would say the marketeer of the year is definitely Joe Henry. We'll kind of go off maybe some of our favorite matches and favorite pay-per-views overall. I think, anything with Will Ospreay, I'll just say that Will Ospreay matches are probably my favorite matches, best matches. I would say differently favorite and best. So I'll put that out there as well. And Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher, I think, put on an amazing match at the most recent AEW pay-per-view. And one quick thing I have to say about that, which I thought was really good, because we all know AEW, their pay-per-views are really long. This pay-per-view was no different. The match between Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher, 17 minutes. And in AEW terms, that's a short match. And it just showed you that you can have an amazing match and all the things that you like about AEW matches. They can be action-packed and crazy, but also don't have to be 45 minutes, because a lot of times we inflate the Wrestle Kingdoms of the world with the Kenny Omega and Okada going almost an hour, with that being the match of the year. This found a way to be only 17 minutes, one of the shorter matches on the card, because they had the match later on that was part of the tournament. But it was an amazing 17 minutes, and it's up there with all his other matches that went 30, 40 minutes long. So, it's not always have to be the length right there, and he showed it right there with Kyle Fletcher. But I think overall, my match of the year, when it comes to the story, when it comes to the build, it's got to be CM Punk and Drew McIntyre, Hell in a Cell at Bad Blood.
Yeah.
It was what we essentially were looking forward to even before WrestleMania a little bit. Once we saw Bad Blood was on the calendar, we all saw that match, and I think that might have been my favorite match of the year. Do you have any your favorite match, best match, favorite pay-per-view?
I think the obvious. You named one that's probably up there for me with CM Punk, Drew. Obviously for me, Cody Rhodes finishing the story, Roman Reigns, WrestleMania 40. I think that would, to me, not only is that the moment of the year for me, but I think that was the match of the year. I thought the pacing was good. It was just the entertainment value was really good. So for me, if I didn't pick CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, which you did, so I'll let you have that one. I'll go with Cody versus Roman, WrestleMania 40 this past year. That was a hell of a match. Great story. Cody got to finish it, and he's been on a great run since.
Yeah, and when it comes to women, I know Rhea Ripley had kind of a unique year. What would you say your women's wrestler of the year is? AEW, WWE, anything?
Ooh, that's a good one. Obviously Rhea Ripley's probably. She's been the wrestler of the year, but I think because of Rhea Ripley's inconsistencies with her, and it's not her in the ring, her on the microphone, she's always entertaining, but because she's been in and out because of injuries, I think the MVP this year for the women's division I think it has to go to Liv Morgan. I think Liv Morgan has been the MVP not only in WWE, but I think across all promotions. I think she's been, and I said that earlier, about the Netflix with Rhea Ripley winning, and that has nothing to do with Liv Morgan. I think Liv Morgan's done a hell of a job. I think Liv Morgan she's been one of those great stories where she was at one point to where she is now. It's a great story. It's a great work ethic on her part. And for me, I'm excited to see more of Liv Morgan with or without the belt, because she's a hell of a talent that WWE is lucky to have.
I think Toni Storm had a really good year in AEW, and so did Mariah May. Probably better than Mercedes Moné, but even Mercedes Moné, she gets a lot of slack. But hey, Mercedes Moné overall actually probably had a really good year, because you do forget that she's not just an AEW wrestler. She's a New Japan wrestler as well. You're going to find that out in the upcoming New Japan and AEW pay-per-views this upcoming weekend, where she's going to be defending her New Japan wrestling title. So she's really got the belts. I just feel like she made her big AEW debut in March, and they shot her right to the moon. And because AEW doesn't have that spotlight that WWE has, then people like myself are a little disappointed, because when you shoot someone to the moon in AEW, the moon isn't as high as the moon is in WWE, right? Yep. So you're like, you're going all the way to the top. Well, the top of TNA wrestling is Bound for Glory, and Bound for Glory, even at a sold-out crowd, is less than a regular Monday Night Raw. So you kind of forget that. You're like, oh, she's going to debut and be the main event of this show and go to the top of the company. You do forget the top of the company. It's got a little bit lower of a ceiling, though, than we're used to. So, when it comes to that, it is difficult to be a huge star in those companies, but they had some good years. But I got to agree. It's got to be Liv Morgan having an amazing year. And coming off it, too, because I was just recently watching her arrest for the marijuana possession in Florida, and all of that. And they had the body camera going off the arrest, and the cops not knowing who she was and those kind of things. And that's all prior to a lot of this. So to see that, and to see obviously where she is now, she definitely had herself a great year. And if you get a chance, if you like, I know a lot of you out there love that Inside WWE. Well, this is one of those things you're not going to see on Netflix, right? Go watch the body camera footage where she calls up her boyfriend, Taylor Rotunda, to come and pick her up. You know what I mean? And he's describing where Taylor lives, where she's located is not too far from JoJo's house, is what she's saying on the telephone, to come pick her up and stuff like that. So, and it's also fun discovering when the police recognize who she is, because they don't know who she is, but they're like, wait a minute, I kind of recognize her name, and they're going through her stuff, and somebody's like, she's got a lot of cash, and she has a check from the WWE for $7,000, so she must be someone. And then that's when the other cop Googles her while the other one's searching her stuff, and is starts reading her Wikipedia. It's actually quite entertaining. They're like, oh my God, I recognize her. She's such and such. And he's like, and then the one person finds her own action figure. She had her own action figure in her car. But I can say that this is prior, because I know, and this kind of shows, right? She's driving a Jeep Wrangler, which is a nice vehicle in Florida. Don't knock it or anything like that. But I think later on in the year, right, her big thing was when the Cybertrucks came out. She's a new owner of a Cybertruck, so that kind of shows her year. She's getting pulled over in a Jeep Wrangler, where no one really recognizes her in Florida, and she's going through probably the lowest point of her life.
And she's single too. I think she's single now too.
No, she's no longer with Mr. Bo Dallas. I didn't know that one.
I don't know if that's 100% confirmed, but you know how it is on the social medias and the internet. I mean, somebody said that she said somewhere recently that she was single, so she might not be with Bo Dallas anymore either, and since that arrest.
Breakout star of the year from Sports Illustrated is Jacob Fatu. And I have to say, that's not a bad pick. I guess just not a lot of singles competition for him. He's been too tied in right there with the bloodline stuff. So it's very difficult. Sports Illustrated also has heel turn of the year as the New Day, Kofi and Xavier turning on Big E. And I have to say, I don't disagree with that. That is a pretty good heel turn.
They're getting good heat right now.
They're getting the New Day is the most interesting that they have been in a long, probably since Kofi Kingston won the championship back in 2019. Yep. That's the most interesting. So good for them to be interesting. So some pros and some cons, I would say. I hope one of the cons and the final thing we'll talk about when it comes to 2024, I hope some of these prices for WWE shows find themselves staying in 2024. I hope we also reach the ceiling with that. And while I want WWE to be as popular as it can be, I also hope the days of seeing $50,000 seats for WrestleMania, I hope this year they learn. I hope nobody buys them, and I hope that next year we don't have that. But that'll actually have to be found out throughout the year because these upcoming events, will take some time. So I kind of hope that the heat kind of, cools down on WWE a little bit. Want the shows to stay good, but maybe cool down on the product just enough so that they start to remember essentially who they are and they're pro wrestling and stop charging like they're we're going to the Super Bowl or something like that. But that's our look back on 2024.